This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, let me get started anyway. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. It's almost 2 years to the day that Southampton engaged the services of General Code to help organize, codify, and improve resident access to the town's general and zoning bylaws. Since that time, both the Bylaw Committee and the Planning Board have been working with General Code to build, update, and publish bylaws that are clear, accessible, and easy to use. And that's what tonight's all about. While bylaws might not be the most exciting topic in anyone's life, if you've ever tried to look up something on our current bylaws, it's like doing research for a term paper. You will see that tonight's demonstration, the ease of access, the clarity and the consistency of the language, and the simplicity of the system to help you get the information you need. We're pleased to have a representative of General Code to introduce our new bylaw platform and to demonstrate to you the ease of use. Members of the Bylaw Committee are happy to have reached the milestone that tonight's demonstration represents. So I'd like to thank the hardworking members, Virginia Ahart, Christine Fowles, Taylor Seabelt, and Lucy Dalton, Town Clerk, who has worked along with us from time to time to make this new platform possible. I just want everyone to know that hopefully this session will be recorded so that people who couldn't be here, so that people who couldn't be here tonight can, just go look up just for a quick tutorial on how to access, how it works, and enjoy themselves. So anyway, because it's fun to use, just to search and just move around. Anyway, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Zach Dumont. He is the account manager from General Code. He's going to walk us through our new platform. It's not live yet, but when it is, this is what you're going to see. Okay, Chris?
Mm-hmm. I'm currently still on the planning. Just be careful, hang on a second. As we move this thing, we keep shutting it off, so be careful.
The lights are on.
It's on? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cindy Palmer, 71 Glendale Road. Just a question to begin with. I'm currently on the planning board. That's only going to be for another couple weeks. But, and this is just to demonstrate how to find this, how to utilize this tool. This is not content. This is not bringing in the proposed new bylaws or the changes. Okay, thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
Is how the new system is going to work. Go ahead, Zach.
As much as I would love to pretend to be an expert in bylaws, I'm not. So I'll leave those questions to your editor, Deb. But I'm very happy to be here tonight because I don't always get the privilege of interacting with the community just before a code goes live, before bylaws are adopted. Normally, my experience is a pile of legislation, unorganized, sitting in a file somewhere that it's very hard to sort through. And what's great is when you go through all of that hard work to get to the point where you've built a code, you realize that the next 10, 20, 30 years of finding your legislation, of answering questions, of being able to identify what the community is responsible for and responsive to is there at your fingertips. 30 seconds, you can find what you're looking for. So a couple of things that we'll go through tonight. We're going to figure out how to navigate through the site, a couple of items to keep an eye out for, and then some features that are available for municipal users, your town clerk, your board members, folks that are going to need the help to do a little bit of research and such like that. But the important thing to remember is that the average, everyday member of the public, whether they're a citizen who lives in town or somebody who has a business here or somebody's looking to develop here, this code site is going to be accessible 24/7, 365. It's never going to go down. We use very high security and Amazon web hosting to make sure that it stays up and it's always there. The other thing that's important to note is, even though it's accessible, that code content does not get changed willy-nilly. The only time you're going to see your bylaws change is when we have been authorized by the community to go forward and implement those changes. We call that process supplementation. Most towns in Massachusetts use an annual town meeting. Some have a town council or city council where they'll do updates more frequently. But the point is, the integrity of your code is always going to be there, because you know that it's only going to receive modification when the town has approved it to happen. So it's a secure resource that you can count on, that you can depend on, that's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to change on you willy-nilly. So a couple things about this site. You'll notice right now that it's a purple banner. It's a little unappealing to the eye. This is how the code looks in its final manuscript form prior to adoption. Once the code has been adopted and sent off to the AG, the colors will revert to something a little bit more visually appealing, and you'll see this work in progress note and related disappear. When you click the home button on a normal code site, you're actually going to start with the general bylaws, and you're going to see all of your chapters and sections on your home page. All of these icons over here, all of these chapter breakdowns, these parts of the code are all going to be clickable interfaces. You can click on a certain chapter and you'll get the actual content. We'll start with chapter 112, animals, because animals are lovely and sometimes you get some good photos in these chapters. But you'll notice right up at the top, it'll tell you the chapter that you're in. You'll see that nesting of how you got to there and a little bit of information about the chapter. You'll be able to go down through the individual articles, and you can click on the titles up here to bounce down, or if you want to just scroll down through, you'll see where all of the content is. As your code is maintained and supplemented over the next 2 decades, this language may change, but the process of navigating to it is always going to remain the same. You'll have your chapter, you'll have your sections, you'll have your subsections. Throughout these subsections, where necessary, you'll also see little helpful pieces that are hyperlinked in, so you can bounce to other parts of the code. You'll see if there are notes. In this case, there are some amendments pending, or if there's something that is necessary to review, like a table of use. It may say editor's note, table of use at the top or bottom of the chapter. It gives you those little hints that will help you navigate the code, but there's nothing to worry about in terms of affecting the code. It's just there to strengthen its integrity. The code in and of itself is very easy to work with if you're looking to search within a specific chapter or section. You can check these little boxes, and you'll notice up at the top, selected 1. If we go up and grab a second one, selected 2. If you were to search for a term that is found within these 2 chapters, it'll appear and you'll get those references. For example, let's look for the word kennel, and you'll see that within those 2 sections there was only one reference to kennel. It's chapter 112, section 3, dog kennels. If you wanted to look at the code in its entirety, you don't have to click any of the check boxes. You can leave those blank and type in that same reference up top, and you'll be connected through with the various results that appear. The idea behind Encode is that we want to be able to go through and view either the code as a whole, if that's what you're looking for, or individual pieces, if that's where you want to tailor your research to. In the old day, you might have gone through a Word document or a PDF, hit Control F, and you're going to get 10,000 references because the letter A appears 10,000 times. This is going to give you the ability to narrow it down and go through and actually track what you're looking for in a much more reliable manner. I'm going to scroll down very quickly to the bottom. You'll see that the code is broken out into those various sections. As you get towards the bottom, you'll see you have your zoning chapter, you'll have some regulations, you'll have your appendix where you'll have your mass general laws or any special acts that were adopted by the town or by the Massachusetts state legislature. As those changes are made, these chapters will get updated once it's supplemented, and you'll see 1889. So a little bit of history there, but we list them all for your availability. So if you're legal researcher who is working on a project for the town, or let's say you're a high school student who has questions, you'll be able to go through and find this history fairly simply just by going through and having a couple of clicks. Down at the very, very bottom, this disposition list is probably one of the more useful tools that we build into Encode. As your legislation changes, we will make updates through the code content. We want to track when those changes happened, what they affected, if they were through a town meeting or a special town meeting. And we also want to be able to link to where those changes were affected. So you'll see here, starting with Article 1, June 7th, 2022, annual town meeting. The subject is finance contract amendments, and it affected Chapter 35, Article 4. There are some communities that we've been working with online, for example, who they'll have items going back as far as the 80s, 90s, a long ways away. But all of those changes are documented, so if there was a question as to when or what was changed, you can go back and have those records there. Then if you call the town clerk or the legal office, you can say, this is what I'm referring to, can you point me in the right direction? It's going to cut down on having to go through page by page. It's going to make a time-consuming process a much more simple one. One of the other tools that we find useful is over here on this archives. This is going to be accessible to municipal employees specifically, but it is a reference that's available if there were questions. You're not going to have much here right now, but as your code is supplemented, we're going to save a digital record of the code so it's accessible for future questions that may arise. For example, I was in the town of Harvard this afternoon. Their Encode site goes back to 2009. They have 16 different digital versions of their code. So if they had a question of, well, what was our rules on dog licensing back in 2010, they can look at the current code, go back and look at the old code from 2010, and see chapter by chapter what language has changed.
So this thing builds an archive.
Exactly. So, and that, it doesn't matter if you update your code once a year, or if you want to update your code 10 times a year. Every time you update it, we're going to save a new record of that code there. So it'll always be available. We find that this is typically a useful tool for bylaw review committee members, planning board folks, anybody that is dealing with drafting new legislation that may want to look at the history of changes, conservation, board of health, all very important things to have available at your fingertips. If you are somebody who is looking to share or ask questions about a certain piece of code, there's going to be a couple of tools up here that are available for you. The three that you'll see as a member of the public not logged into the site are going to be print, email, and get updates. If you wanted to ask a question regarding, let's say, Chapter 35 in finance, you would click that chapter and you could click email, and your preferred email client will pop up with a link to that section of the code. If you went even further into that chapter, and let's say we said, we don't just want to look at finance, Chapter 35, we want to specifically say Article 3 of Chapter 35. Same thing, check that box and hit email, and you'll get a link to that part. And then you can reach out and say, dear town administrator, this is my question regarding this chapter. Can you please point me in the right direction? That way there, you as a member of the public or you as a member of the municipality are able to directly point somebody to the references and to the information that they're going to need. Instead of a wild goose chase, oh, go check chapter 1, 2, 3. It's right there. It's at your fingertips. Just click on it. If you're somebody who is really attached to the Council on Aging and you wanted to get notified anytime updates happen, click on that chapter, click Get Updates, and you can type in your email address and hit Sign Up. Anytime a new law is added into the code that affects that code content, you are going to get an indication, you're going to get an email that says, hey, this chapter is updated, you've subscribed to these updates. We find in larger cities, for example, where zoning regulations may update more frequently, commercial developers, real estate agents, people who need to know about that kind of stuff, they're going to subscribe for it. But if there's something more simple, like you want to know every time the dog license chapter changes or conservation rules change, you can sign up for that. So, I'm sorry? Yes, it's free. Absolutely. So everything about Encode, to access it, is going to be free, 100%. There is an annual hosting fee that the community pays for, and there are fees to update the code. What I always break it down to is we're only going to build a town for work that you have us do. So if you're not having us do any work, it's there, it's accessible, it's good to go. Give me two.
Walk through one of the chapters. Walk through one of the chapters so they can see the whole content.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is an example of how it's laid out.
What's a good chapter? Do you have one?
Do town meeting.
There we go. Chapter 93. So, Chapter 93, Town Meeting. You'll see when you click on the chapter, you're going to have all the individual sections that are broken down, where you can click on either one of these and jump to that section. If you wanted to just go through and scroll down and read, you can do that. Scroll all the way down, find the section that you want to read about or learn more about. It's all going to be nested in the exact same way. As we break down further into the code, you'll eventually see A, B, C. If there are tables that are broken out in there, they're all going to be underneath the individual headers. We try to not have any information just floating out and about. Everything has a place because everything should flow in a logical order. So, and you can go through and just click on the individual sections. You can grab those. You can send an email. You can get those updates. There is a print feature. This may be helpful if you're looking to just get a basic Word copy. I'll be honest, I don't think it always looks the prettiest, but it is available if you wanted to grab it, or even if you just wanted to take it, copy it, and drop it into a Word document. What we find useful is that for folks who are going to town meeting, who have questions, who want to play a part, who want to be a part of it, if there are updates that are happening, to be able to just open up your laptop or take out your mobile phone and look at the code content that's being discussed, it's going to be a significantly easier experience instead of juggling an 800-page manuscript, and the things weigh 25 pounds. On this far left side here, if you're somebody who likes to look at the whole code, just kind of in very short form, you can pin this table of contents and you can scroll through this instead of looking at one giant code document. But here again, you can just click through, and as you click through the table of contents, you'll also get those same breakdowns that you would have here on the right, but it's in a slightly easier format to read as opposed to looking at one giant screen. I'm going to click over real quickly to another community. It's the city of North Adams. There's a feature that's available that will become available once your site has been adopted and posted to the public, and that's this option down at the bottom. We all know that in Massachusetts, many, many languages are spoken. I speak English, I speak French, I speak Chinese. But if I didn't speak English and I lived here and I needed to know how to navigate the code, I can use this translate feature to update the code into a language that's easier for me to understand.
That's fantastic.
When we talk about being in 2023, coming out of a pandemic where accessibility was a huge concern, where being able to get the basic items that you need to function in everyday society, electronic access and access in the language that you are best able to understand is critical. So again, with the translate feature, there's no charges, there's nothing extra that you have to worry about. You just click the button at the bottom of the page, and all of these languages will pop up. So for example, you can do Chinese, you can do Spanish, you can do so many more. The way that this affects the site is it's only going to be for the individual user who's looking at it. So it doesn't change the whole site for everybody. It's only the person looking at the screen. As long as you clear your cookies, the next time you go back to the site, it should default right back to English and it shouldn't save anything. But if there was a question, just go down to the bottom, click back over to English, and boom, there you go.
The translate button is always there.
I'm sorry?
Translate button is always there.
Always there, yes. So once the code has been adopted and been approved, we'll go in there and we'll update it so that feature is available. So there are a couple things that you can do with the site that we have to wait until the code has been published before you can actually play with those features, but it's all there, it's all built in. some really great things with general code is we always want to empower our communities by delivering the best product that we can. So as it was said before, you partnered with us 2 years ago. We're committed to delivering you a set of bylaws that you can rely on. But that relationship doesn't stop after the code has been finished. We want to make sure that you can always access those bylaws, ask questions, get answers. So the reason I say that is about 6 months ago, we published an update to Encode 360. It was about 9 months worth of development work. We didn't update our rates or anything to that effect. The annual fee to host the site remains the same. But the point is, we knew that we could deliver an improved experience at the same price point without having to go back to towns and say, hey, we need more money to support this. So we do those regular and consistent updates to make sure that as our technology improves, so does your experience. There's going to be no hidden surprises, no hidden fees, no crazy questions that pop up. There's one other item I wanted to point out. We do have an app for iPhone and Android. It is a free app. It is called Encode Search. If you download that to your iPhone or Android device, you can type in the community that you're looking for and get the code available on the phone. It's going to look exactly the same way, just a little bit smaller because it's on a mobile phone. But if you're a code enforcement officer, if you're at home and you have a question about like a noise ordinance, if somebody's making noise at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning, you can do that research at home without having to log into a computer or pick up the book. I have the app on my phone. I use it every time I walk into a town. It's a very nifty device. And again, free of charge.
That's great.
That's kind of the long and short of it. Were there any concerns or questions or items that popped up?
I have one question. When I see that new laws on the left-hand side and it
Yeah.
says 0, so assuming there's a new law or some variation of an existing MGL that's passed in Boston, say on, I don't know, swimming pools, for example, something gets passed in Boston, does that automatically tell us here, book something?
Counter's going to go up. So
And do you
I don't have any
automatically
examples.
do
What happens?
update with that, or do we have to go back to town meeting and say, this is them?
So usually what happens is items are adopted at town meeting, or if it's mass general law, the town clerk tells us. So anytime you change your bylaws, it's going to get sent out to us. We're going to post it in new laws. That way there, if the town has a question, oh, hey, did we ever supplement this thing in? No, but it's sitting there in new laws.
So that's
So
our
it's-
bylaws?
Correct.
Something
Those
new
are
to
your
us, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm looking at, then MGLs that would have been changed or updated down in Boston. That's, that's a different reference number or something compared to what's currently in a particular bylaw. How does that change, or what
So-
do we have
How
to
do we
do?
get notified of that change?
Or how does it automatically?
Usually, when it comes to those updates, we expect the town to inform us of updates that come through. Lucy, you're raising your
I
hand?
was just going to say, if the town adopts the MGL, then we will notify them, but the town has to adopt the MGL. I mean,
As I understand the Mass General laws, the town has to adopt them for them to take effect.
I mean, not every time.
I'm just wondering, yeah, if it was.
If it's accepted, then, yeah, we would have to do that.
Yeah. I'm assuming if you're an annual town meeting
You have to
community,
like-
that's where you'd make your adoptions.
Yes.
Sometimes,
They would have to stay on top of it.
This was going to keep us up to date in terms of the citations, but that still falls on us.
So in terms of updating the code, we make it significantly easier. But with communities updating their laws, we expect to be notified by the clerk or
No, understood, we have to change it, but be notified that something has changed, and it's our responsibility to go and look at our bylaws, bring them up to date, and then you make the change on the system.
Exactly. So so your clerk will send the updated language to us. We'll get it on Encode. And then depending on how frequently you update your code is how frequently we update the site, and that's when we'll notify down at the bottom what those changes are. So you'll see those changes take effect down at that disposition list down here. So let's say you have a town meeting in June, for example. If you were to adopt 10 items there, once we got those from your clerk, we'd post them all there. You'd see that those updates have happened.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I got that. I guess I was thinking that, like, for example, under humane treatment of animals, suppose there was a change in the bylaw in Boston. We eventually get it, but you don't get it any faster than we do and make any kind of an automatic
No.
update because of a new MGL reference.
Correct, we don't get it
Okay.
any quicker.
Okay,
So we would still abide by, like.
the attorney or
Yeah.
Yeah.
The legal, yeah.
okay.
So I would get a copy, and you
Yeah.
would get a copy. Yeah.
I would love it if we could plug right into the Massachusetts. It would make, we work, once this site goes live, we will have 132 communities in Massachusetts who have Encode. Some communities, they're private sites, so it's only available to town employees. Most, 98% of them, they're available to the public. So we do a lot of work in Mass. If we could just hook right up to the MGL notification system, we'd be a lot happier,
If
but
something gets missed that doesn't get adopted by a town, that,
Yeah.
that
We-
missed
You
out
don't know,
on
you
that.
don't know.
we have
No,
ways
no,
of
no.
checking, but we usually don't look unless there's a question about it, just because it is a significant amount of work to see what the legislature has done.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Got it.
Maybe this is a question for the committee, hardworking, wonderful committee. How far back does the history go? I mean, did it start only, what about bylaws that were in process 20 years ago? Would they be reflected on there? Do we know?
So the process started for the bylaw committee?
Well, for the fact that you can look at some history.
How far back?
What preceded, if you clicked on any particular site or, article or.
Because a lot happened before the committee was.
That's
Oh,
what I'm
yeah.
saying,
Like
yeah.
the real.
I mean, I can go back to
Well,
as
the-
far as forever.
I was gonna say, the draft,
But the draft was,
I mean, the bylaws that Encode
yeah.
took from us to make this code, right?
Yeah.
All have a date on them, usually in terms of when they were passed at town meeting and when they were approved by the Attorney General.
Right.
So to the extent, there's at least one version that's gonna be there that has that
Usually what we do,
Could you
information on
show
it.
me an example of that, of something that
sure.
passed in the 90s or something like that?
I wonder if I'm under town meeting.
We're building an archive from this point.
Right.
Right, it's only
Exactly.
going
Yeah,
forward.
they
So-
have taken our whole file cabinet, I don't believe, of old bylaws and put them in the system and then recorded them as we update them.
But this might,
So
this gets us some there on that adoption date.
I don't know of a specific example off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but there are a couple of possibilities for how the process started.
Yeah.
I've only been here for a year. Your project has been going on for 2, so I wasn't here when it started. But usually what happens is we go to a community with an annual town meeting. Their bylaws exist in one of 2 formats. It's a pile of individual laws with no structure at all sitting somewhere, or it is an in-house made code where there is some structure, there is some data put together in not always the best format, but it's a format nonetheless. What we do is when we compile all that, we sort of reset that counter in that we're going to build you a comprehensive document. The town adopts that document as a whole. In this case, I believe, you guys haven't adopted yet, have you?
No.
No, okay. So we would say adopted 2023, and then moving forward, you'd see all those individual changes for all the new stuff. For some of the old stuff, as we saw on the disposition list earlier, I believe it was the June town meeting of last year, where some of that history is. Not every bylaw has the best history behind it. So when we codify, we're going to use the most accurate information we can, but sometimes we just don't know. There have been some communities where we grab a bunch of legislation, we know it was from the 70s or 80s, but we don't know when in the 70s and 80s, other than it was adopted, it has been enforced, it has been used, whether it's citing somebody for something or operating a town. That's a little bit more technical than I know off the top of my head. I can check with your editor, Deb, if she had some examples, but
You can come see me.
I don't have an example. I just wondered how far back.
Yeah.
yeah. So I know at least on the MGL, we saw, 1889, so that is history. But for individual bylaws, it all depends on how well the town's records were kept.
Yeah.
I've been on this forever. I was asked when,
Velda.
what?
Velda began.
Well, she was working, but the, town administrator,
Heather.
Heather, began to put it together. And I can tell you that some of them were very old, and they were all mixed up, and we worked off and on. There would be periods of time when nothing would be happening. Over that period of time, and I can't tell you how many years it is, but
I'm just taking a quick peek.
We took what was there and began to work with the select board. We go to the meeting and give them things that they had to check on. It's been a long process.
Yeah, I'm not seeing them on
And I think some of our bylaws have to be close to 100 years old.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So,
Well, that's what we've been working on, is
Yeah.
updating those 100 years.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm just going to borrow Harvard really quickly. So, for example, this is Harvard Mass's code. They adopted at a special town meeting in December of 2002. And then you'll notice thereafter, 2003, 2004, and so on and so forth. So this is where we build that new history. In some cases in the code, we're able to say for a specific chapter or section, adopted spring town meeting of, 1964. It kind of depends on how well you kept your records. And
So
things change and...
No, that's not true. I mean, in the last 10 years, certainly.
yeah.
I mean, all the warrants for town
Yeah.
meeting with all the bylaws and what's been accepted and approved.
Exactly.
Those are all there.
All the general bylaws that I've sent to the editor have the adoption date
Right.
at the ATM or STM
Yeah.
and by the Attorney General's office
Right.
on there. So
I would hope that that would be part of our archive, not
I
just.
thought that she had said
That's
that
what
they
I'm
were
asking,
going to
yeah.
be part of the archive.
I can double check where they're
I would
hidden
double check with her
specifically.
Because she said that she wanted to have that as
Yeah.
part of
History,
it,
yeah.
because.
Deb is
people
very
wanted
good with
that.
putting them together.
Yeah, so.
I don't have the technical expertise
Yeah,
to build
so
codes
maybe it's
personally.
not- Maybe she doesn't want to include that yet because it hasn't been adopted yet.
Again, there are some things that'll look slightly different when the
Right.
site goes
I
live.
bet
We have to
that's
wait
why,
for adoption,
Because it
but
has not been adopted yet, so.
Exactly.
They don't want to include it, bless you.
we have a question in the front row?
Yes, miscellaneous documents.
Yes.
13, what is that?
These are just here for the actual code work, the process of building the
Oh,
code.
that's for the admin.
Yeah.
That's for the committee.
So
Oh,
basically,
finalized stuff.
all of the committee documents that you needed to put the thing together, this is where they all live. So that's why I didn't touch on it. It's nothing that's going to be relevant to the public.
So this is in there, the zoning bylaws, different things that have to get done. This is, I think,
Yeah, it should be one of these documents right here. So yeah, so everything that was used to codify the editorial legal analysis, the responses, all in there.
Yeah. But you can't click on that.
No, you can. Yeah, you can. They're there, they're PDFs. You, the public, couldn't, but you, the municipal employee who's been working on building the code, can see it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you.
you're
Can
welcome.
you show them the Facebook share thing, the Twitter?
Yeah,
You're going to show them?
absolutely. Let me go back.
Well, no, it's just a feature that he had shown before.
If you wanted to share a part of the code, there should be a share button. Where's the share button? Oh, hang on. You know what? There it is. Okay. When the site goes live,
Yep.
using North Adams again,
Yeah.
grab it, click share, Facebook, Twitter, print, email, or if you wanted to copy a link to send to somebody, you could do that. Just hit copy the link.
Can you edit it once you've started to share? In other words, can it be messed up? Somehow, can somebody misstate the bylaw by saying, I pulled it right off? Do you understand what I'm saying?
You shouldn't be able to, because
Is it like a PDF?
when you click on the email button, you're going to get a link to the code. You're not going to get a text version of the code. You're only going to get the code itself.
You can't go in and make.
So no funny business. Yeah.
Fake news.
Yeah. Like, realistically, if the question was, can you provide me with the Word version of the code? Absolutely. I can give you a Word version of the code. If you were to update and play with that Word version before sending it to someone, I mean, that's a no-no, but, you know, it's something you could do. But when you share it, you're sharing a link to the Encode site, and the Encode site doesn't get updated until your town clerk or town manager says, please update the site. Yeah. So you can change your code whenever you'd like to, but we try to make it so that it's not being updated willy-nilly and people aren't doing nefarious things that they're not supposed to be doing. So we all want to paint our doors bright yellow and our roofs green, but there's reasons why we have bylaws that say we can't do that. Any other questions on the site? Are we feeling okay? Are there? Yeah. Awesome.
And there's going to be a link, right, on our website.
Exactly.
Or did you already go over that when I left you?
So once your Encode site has been finalized, we're going to provide you with a hyperlink to the site. Whomever manages your actual town website, you can give that to them and say, create a button that says bylaws or municipal code or whatever you want it to read. In a lot of communities, what happens is this upper banner will do the same thing on our end. So you can click Town of Southampton, it'll go to your municipal website. On your municipal website, you'd have a button that goes back to our website. So very simple, very easy.
Currently on our town website, if you go to forms and documents at the top, would we find bylaws there? Is that button there?
So, no, they're under government, admin, town clerk, So, but we are getting a new website.
It's
So the
getting
new
much
website is coming like very soon.
Okay.
And the way it's gonna work is, we're gonna have each department is gonna be
Okay.
administrating their own.
Mhm.
So I'll have to talk to Ed to see if, like, maybe I can have this link on my site, because.
Some towns, they make it a
We may have,
standalone.
or maybe a
Or
separate
maybe
site.
site, yeah.
Maybe a
Yeah.
site by itself, so it's
A
easier to
site by
find.
itself, that's a good idea.
Like right in the menu bar up top, a lot of
Yeah.
towns will just put
Yeah.
ordinances or bylaws or.
Yeah,
Because right now,
exactly.
it's really
Toolbar,
buried. You've
yeah.
got to go through at least 5 or 6 clicks to get to
Yes,
the
you do,
bylaws
I
now.
know, I'm so sorry.
It's not intuitive where it lives right now,
I
so.
know.
Who's building a new website?
We have a group called Final Site.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not familiar with them, but I'm sure they'll be fine. There are 101 municipal website companies out there, so I'm always curious. But if they had any questions about accessing the data, just send me an email, we can give it to them and make it fully accessible for them.
Any experience, has anybody ever come across bugs?
No.
No?
Occasionally, something will pop up. We'll try to nab it immediately if we can. The Encode development team pushes updates, I believe it's every 2 to 3 weeks now. So as they go through to refine things, to make it easier to use, to make it less load intensive on your website, they'll push those out typically at 3 in the morning on Sunday, and the sites are taken care of. It goes down for 45 seconds, it goes right back up, and then the site works a little bit better. But we've never had a massive bug that takes the site down. What we do say is if you do see something that looks funny, let me know, let your town clerk know, let your town admin know, because as soon as we figure it out, there's going to be 8 different people at General Code trying to figure out what it is and how it happened. So it's a team of 35 people. They're very dedicated to make sure that it gets taken care of. So,
Can you access this from mobile?
yes, yep,
So
that's the
mobile,
Encode.
desktop, everything?
Yes, it's the Encode search app. If your mobile browser is able to load the site, then you'll have no issue there, but usually we say you get a better experience using the app because it's built for viewing the code as opposed to trying to play with it on a Safari or a Firefox. So.
What about other accessibility issues? Suppose I wasn't able to see very well and I just wanted to know something about mosquitoes.
Like using a reader software? Yeah. So we discussed this a little bit before the meeting, but the site is more or less agnostic, the best way to describe it. If you have software to read, it should read. If you have software to speak, it should speak.
From the website itself?
From the individual users. I don't know of any specific functionality. I actually personally have a hearing deficiency, so I use software on my own personal computer that makes it easier for me to read stuff. But that's software that I use and I configure to my preferences.
Okay.
What we do recommend is if you have somebody in the community that is having trouble with it for whatever reason, have them reach out to us, because if we can find a way to better tailor the experience, we're going to do that. It's all about making sure that your key legislation is accessible, so any way we can make that easier, it's going to happen. There's nothing else that really pops out as being incredibly necessary. One thing that I do find useful, which I don't think it's going to let me do, on the admin tab, and I am going to borrow somebody else's website real quickly because you don't have it yet, but on the admin tab, some communities find very nifty this dashboard feature. Once this loads, it's going to give you an overview of the last 12 months of Encode usage. And in terms of usage, what we mean is how many people are accessing the site, how many individual users who are unique based on IP address are accessing the site, and what are the trending topics, as it were. What's the most searched thing? Exactly. So for some communities, the subject of dog licensing might pop up, permitting, etc. You don't really know what's going on in your community until you take a look and say, oh, well, we had a meeting about a dispensary, for example. Now everybody's apparently running into an issue. Awesome. So it's just, hey, there it goes. Perfect. So you'll get a month-by-month graph. You can see where it peaks and what the busy months are. So September, I'm going to guess that that's probably because they have an annual, or they have a special town meeting. But you can go by what day of the week is typically most useful. So you'll see Monday through Thursday, fairly busy, and then everybody checks out on Friday. And then you can again go by hours and see, you know, there's a big peak at 1 o'clock, there's a big peak at 9. There's some communities where you get a spike right at 2 a.m. for some reason. But you'll see, for example, in the last 30 days, the number 125, adopted bylaws, proposed A or road overlay districts. These were all real people, individual people who had questions, and this is the most popular topics. I'm sorry?
Does it ever track who used it?
It doesn't give us individual data for a specific person, like, hey, Zachary at 123 Main Street. But it'll look at a unique digital signature to say this IP address keeps logging on the site to look at these questions. And the reason why it does the IP address is it's reasonably anonymous, but that way there we're not tracking anybody individually, but it gives you a very fair read of whether or not the site is useful. So we have some communities, 20, 30,000 people. Harvard's a small community, so 10 people searching for the number 125 isn't very much. But the term relevance, for example, got searched in the last 12 months 1,172 times. In large communities, we might see those numbers 20, 30,000. You know, maybe it's a development firm who's doing research trying to do stuff. Maybe it's a group of concerned citizens who have questions. But
That's interesting information. That's
yeah.
very interesting.
So it's there for the municipality. So it's there for the municipality to help figure out, and it's there for committee members if they have questions. You know.
What does the
Oh.
titles thing, is that just shows what?
Titles talks about the number of printed code books that you have. The number of, so if you're a community that had 400 code books, it would say 400.
I see.
If you had 2 code books, it would say 2.
No.
Most communities now, I say, get 5 at most. We're all digital these days.
Yeah.
And then again, for the municipal user, this will actually go over the job history, so for the supplements. So for example, you'll see we completed their code project 2001. It was adopted the following year, and then all the supplements that have happened since then, special prints, anything like that. So your website is a little bit sparse right now. Once it goes live, it's going to fill in over time. But like most things, it takes time to gather that data, to put it together. You are a very new community in terms of codifying, but in 15 years, when you say, hey, when's the last time you looked at their bylaws? Yeah, you're going to have all that information to look back on. What I will say, because this meeting is being recorded for folks who need a quick idea of how to navigate Encode. General Code does offer training webinars on their website. They're absolutely free. We host about 6 of them a week. They're about 30 minutes in length. What I'd always say is if there's a member of the community who feels like they're struggling a little bit to use Encode, if you don't feel comfortable showing them yourself as a town employee, give them my email address, not my phone number, please, my email address. I can reach out to them and I can set them up with an individual training session, or we can set it up so they're a part of some of the public ones. What I do find useful with the public Encode demos is you might have people from Texas, California, Nebraska, New York, and Massachusetts. Well, 6 different states are going to ask 6 different types of questions. You might find more information that you weren't thinking of at first because it wasn't something that was on top of your mind. But something that might be important in Texas or Kentucky or Tennessee, oh, hey, that's important here. You know what? I have a question about that. I'm really glad that I figured out how to find that information. So, but,
I think it's great.
yeah, awesome.
That's fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.